Hello everyone, we are back in the world with a very abrupt introduction. Today we are just having the goal of making a kelp farm, wood farm, clay farm, and algal processing. Moving forward with the building of the kelp farm, I decided to settle on this little area where it's just going to be a miniature one and I'll scale it up later in the game. So here's a little time lapse of me building this pit. With that little pit completed, we can now build the mechanisms inside for harvesting kelp, as well as obviously planting the kelp itself. So for now, we go out and start harvesting materials, such as all the necessary andesite alloy, kelp, to make radial chassis, andesite machines for the harvesters, funnels, and portable storage interfaces. Gathering resources wasn't too much of a difficult task, although it did take a bunch of andesite alloy, some extra harvesting of ores, although fortunately you don't see any of that here. I decided to put a water wheel underneath the ground and just a singular water block powering it and a radial chassis going up, followed by having just some sticky super glue and barrels on top for some storage, along with having the harvesters on the side. Touching up the entire contraption with the harvesters. As you can see, it's very simple. I decided to flip it on, see if it works, and fortunately it does, spinning the right way and everything. After getting the contraption working, I decided to make a uniform floor using stone bricks, and after that, I decided to fill in the bottom of the farm with the actual kelp. This kelp is then able to be harvested by the harvesters, and using the portable storage interface and chutes can be ported into a drawer. Once the kelp farm was complete, I just kind of ran around for about 10 minutes deliberating on what I should do next, and then I settled on a wood farm, followed by a clay farm. The clay farm won't be fully automated just because I don't have access to crushing wheels at this point. I mean, I could, but it would take a shitload of work, and I'm not in that for now. Quickly laying out a 5x5 area, I decided that this would be the proper size for my upcoming Maplewood farm, and that's because I only want rudimentary automation of kinetic mechanisms, where then I can use that to make easier andesite machines, and from there, move on into making better farms. As we all know, though, projects such as these don't come along for free, so I had to go back underground and get some resources. So showing you guys a couple clips of that just to make sure you guys know I'm actually doing this. I just went down below and collected a bunch of iron, cinnabar for redstone, and other metals that I would need. Now, the plan for the wood farm's pretty simple. It's just going to use the same basis as the kelp farm, which is a radial chassis rotating farm. So I'm still going to have a water wheel down below with a water source powering it, but this time I'm going to have saws attached instead of harvesters, so that way I can break the bottom block of the tree and break the whole tree in the process. That will then export into a portable storage interface. It'll have built-in storage with barrels on the contraption and funnel down into a drawer. In between, I forgot to mention that I'm going to need a couple more andesite machines in order to make the deployers, which require gold. This is so saplings can be redeployed and always be planted during the farm. I also set up some rudimentary automation for my melter, using a chute and a barrel to capture all the drops and a lever to automatically dispense. With the deployers now made, we can now assemble the complete farm where these deployers will have a filter for the maple saplings, enabling them to plant any maple saplings in their internal buffer, which then allows a renewable source of wood. With wood fully automated, I can move on to the next automation challenge, which would be clay, followed by algal processing, which will mix the clay and kelp, and that will be smelted in order to get algal bricks. Double checking some recipes here, I am ensuring the pathway for clay I want to take. Ideally it would be crushing wheels, but I decided to look through everything and again ultimately settled on the strainer. The strainer would be the machine easiest to automate at this moment just because it'll give you sand and clay if you have a strainer base and the mesh with it. However, it does need to be replaced, so it also is low maintenance instead of no maintenance. Another downside is the use of thatch for the mesh, so we have to gather that now. With the thatch finally gathered and crafted into meshes, I can place them inside the strainers to start fully automating clay and sand. I also decided to rework our entire starting power generation / workshop area, and that's because the 8 RPM from one single water wheel wasn't going to cut it. It could literally only power the fan and the press, so I decided to revamp everything. Once all of our setup was complete, I used gear ratios to scale up our RPM from 4 to 128, hooking in my press, fan, and now a mixer once I put the whisk on it. With this mixer, we now have access to a cheaper andesite alloy recipe, where it only takes one andesite and one algal brick to make 2 alloys, as opposed to 2 of each making 2. We also have access to making rubber for belts with flowers and water. Moving into the extraction of the clay and sand, I just used a belt with a bunch of chutes, and I'm going to belt those things around, put some fans down, wash them, and smelt them. With all the processing complete, I can now put my excess algal blend onto the belt, where we can move forward and use these algal bricks just for andesite alloys and have an easier time producing all the machines. Alright everyone, that'll do it for today. Today we've accomplished a lot. We've revamped our entire setup for our little workshop. We have a kelp farm, a wood farm, and an algal processing plant right there. In the next time, I aim to establish a villager trading hall, maybe an andesite mining operation, and we'll go forward from there to make our kinetic mechanisms. But for now, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, thank you. Just remember, I do this for the love of the game. Peace.